My name is Nathan. I'm 41 years old, and I used to believe that if you worked hard, stayed loyal, and took care of your family, they'd have your back. That belief was gone the instant I saw the words on my birthday cake. But let me start from the beginning, back when I still thought the little things mattered. I'm not flashy. Never have been. I wake up at 6, make my own coffee, drive 45 minutes to work, manage a logistics warehouse, and come home around 6:30. I've done that routine for almost 2 decades now. Paid off the mortgage early. Never missed a school event. Fixed everything from leaking pipes to my son Ethan's first heartbreak when he was 16. I didn't expect praise. I just assumed that quiet effort meant something. My wife, Rachel, used to be my biggest cheerleader. Or maybe that's just how I remember it. We met in college. She had a spark, and I was the quiet guy in the back who always showed up early and took notes for everyone. She said she loved how dependable I was. Over time, that dependable label started sounding more like boring. Still, I thought we were doing okay until last year's birthday. My birthdays were always low-key, which I was fine with. I'd usually get a card, maybe a shirt I didn't pick, and a homemade meal. But this year, they planned a party. It was all Ethan's idea, they said. I came home to balloons taped awkwardly to the ceiling fan, a bunch of store-bought snacks dumped into mismatched bowls, and a half-hearted banner that read, "Happy Birthday, Nate," like I was some neighbor they barely knew. Still, I smiled. Took it all in stride. Rachel pulled me over to the dining table, where the cake sat. Chocolate fudge. My favorite. Except this one didn't say "Happy Birthday" or "We love you" or anything remotely normal. It said, in thick, clumsy red frosting, "Congrats on being mediocre." At first, I thought it was a joke. You know, that dark, ironic humor some people like. But then Ethan held up his phone, filming my reaction. Rachel laughed. "Come on, it's funny. You're always saying you're just average." I never said that. Not once. But they ran with it, hooting and hollering like they were roasting me at a comedy club. I smiled. Not because I was okay, but because I had to. I blew out the candles, posed for pictures like some corporate mascot, then quietly started cleaning up once everyone wandered off to the living room to scroll through their phones. No one offered to help. Not even Ethan. I scraped dried frosting off the table, bagged up half-eaten chips, and rinsed their plates in silence. The only sound was the distant laughter from Rachel's phone as she rewatched the video, chuckling like it was primetime comedy. Nobody noticed I didn't say a single word the rest of the night. The days after were a blur. I didn't argue, didn't confront. I just watched, observed, like I was standing outside my own life, taking inventory. I noticed how Rachel hadn't worked in over 6 years, but still shopped like we had unlimited funds. How Ethan had a brand new laptop, gaming chair, and an allowance big enough to cover a car payment. How I paid every bill, every subscription, every little luxury, without question. I had been the engine quietly running the whole show, and they'd started to treat me like furniture, reliable, motionless, taken for granted. That Monday, I checked our joint accounts. We had three, 2 savings, 1 checking. I opened them all. I stared at the numbers. Then I stared longer at the spending history. Rachel had spent over $900 that week alone, on candles, face serums, random Etsy junk, and yet another self-care subscription box. Ethan had blown through $300 on gaming microtransactions. I traced it all back, month after month, year after year. It hit me like a freight train. I was funding a lifestyle that had no room for me. So I made a plan. I didn't rage. I didn't shout. I simply started preparing. I opened a private checking account in my name only. I rerouted my paycheck. I applied for a small storage unit on the other side of town. I began gathering important documents, birth certificates, my social security card, passports. Every night, I'd go for a walk, but I was really moving boxes of personal items out of the house, one by one. Old photos, tools, even a few valuables from my dad that Rachel never cared for. No one noticed. They were too busy living the life I paid for. I also stopped paying the little things, quietly. Rachel's gym membership? Canceled. Ethan's Netflix, Spotify, PSN? All gone. I even downgraded the internet. When Rachel asked why the speed was lagging, I shrugged and said, "Must be the router." They grumbled, but didn't press. I guess when you treat someone like a ghost, you don't notice when they really start vanishing. The final piece was the joint account. I'd left just enough in there to keep up appearances, but that changed on a Tuesday morning. The exact day, I booked a temporary rental using my new account, signed the lease, and confirmed the final paycheck deposit. I waited until Rachel left for her weekly brunch and Ethan was at school. Then I emptied the joint account completely. All of it. Every cent into my name. An hour later, I deleted myself from every shared app, disabled the family credit cards, and removed my login from every smart home device. My phone buzzed once, then twice, then nonstop. 37 missed calls, all from Rachel. Some voicemails, then texts, one after another. What did you do? Nathan, call me. Now. You emptied everything? Then came the all-caps barrage, the strings of question marks, and finally the video call that I let ring out as I sat quietly in my rental's kitchen, sipping coffee from a chipped mug I'd brought from home. Alone, peaceful, and finally, quiet. But that wasn't even the dramatic part. Not yet, because Rachel hadn't seen what was coming next. By the time I got to voicemail number 12, Rachel had fully lost whatever sense of calm she had left. You have no idea what you've done, she snapped in one of the messages, her voice shaking not from sadness, but fury. You've ruined everything, Nathan. I have bills coming out tomorrow. What am I supposed to do? That one made me pause. Ruined everything. Not, let's talk. Not, why did you leave? Not even a scrap of concern about me, the man she just publicly humiliated with a cake that called him mediocre in front of his own son. No, it was about her lifestyle crumbling, her comfort being threatened. She was never worried about losing me. She was worried about losing the man who paid for everything while being laughed at in his own home. Later that night, I got a text from Ethan. Dad, Mom's freaking out. What's going on? I stared at it. Ethan, who hadn't even made eye contact with me on my birthday, who thought it was hilarious to film me while the cake joke landed like a slap across the face, who hadn't once offered to help me clean. It was probably the first time he texted me without asking for money. I typed something, deleted it, thought for a moment, then wrote, ask her. I didn't say anything else. I wanted him to think. I wanted him to ask real questions, not just parrot whatever Rachel was spewing. But I had a feeling I knew how this would go. The next day, a mutual friend, Mike from work, who knew both Rachel and me, called. I let it go to voicemail, but I played it out of curiosity. Hey man, not sure what's going on, but Rachel showed up at the office this morning. She was crying and saying you abandoned your family and emptied the accounts. Just wanted to check in. You okay? I almost laughed. Abandoned? I didn't abandon them. I just stopped being their financial hostage. A few hours later, I logged into the joint email we still technically shared. I hadn't deleted myself from it yet, and thank God I didn't. Rachel had already started messaging lawyers. I found one with the subject line urgent, spouse financial abuse. I clicked it. Read it. My hands clenched a bit. Not because I was afraid, but because the lies poured out like poison. He has a history of emotional neglect, financially controlling, refuses to provide access to shared resources. She painted herself as the victim, claimed I was the manipulator, that I controlled the money. No mention of the 5-figure credit card she racked up in my name. No mention of the spa retreats, the bottomless brunches, the $1,000 handbag she never thanked me for. No mention of me single-handedly covering mortgage, groceries, and utilities for 17 years while she pursued her dreams and never once brought in a cent. I stared at the screen for a while. Rage tried to crawl up my throat, but I swallowed it. That was her game. Emotional manipulation. Smear campaigns. Victimhood. I wouldn't play. Instead, I printed every transaction record from the last 2 years. Created a digital folder of every receipt, every charge, every bank statement. Highlighted each non-essential purchase with her name attached. Labeled it, evidence, household contributions. Then I added my W-2s, tax returns, proof of full mortgage payments made from my income only, and a few screenshots of her birthday cake joke posted to Facebook with the caption, LOL, my husband knows he's just average. Yeah, that was public. I sent it all to my own attorney, one I had quietly hired a week before the party. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to hide. But I was going to burn this down the legal way. No yelling. No drama. Just slow, calculated exposure. By the weekend, Rachel had sent over 80 texts. Some apologizing. Some begging. Most of them raging. One said, "How could you humiliate me like this? You left me with nothing." I responded to that one. You left me with nothing years ago. I just finally caught up. Silence. Until the next day. I was sitting in the tiny kitchen of the rental apartment. The sun was coming through the blinds in that quiet, golden way it only does in the late afternoon. I was sipping tea when I heard a knock. Not the door. The window. I turned. Rachel. Disheveled. Eyes red. Hair messy like she hadn't slept. She motioned for me to open it. I stood up slowly. Kept my distance. She yelled through the glass. "You're going to ruin everything." I tilted my head. Calmly replied, "You already did." She looked like she might throw something. "You want to blow up this family over a cake?" That line. That single, oblivious, narcissistic line made everything click. She still didn't get it. It wasn't the cake, I said through the window. It was what came before. And what never came after. Respect. Kindness. Gratitude. You don't get to mock someone and expect loyalty. You want a provider, not a partner. I just stopped applying for the job. I pulled the curtain shut. She banged once on the window, then again, and then stormed off down the stairs, her heels clacking with every furious stomp. I didn't watch her leave. I went back to my tea. That night, Ethan finally called. His voice was quiet. Nervous. "Dad?" he asked. "Are you really gone?" "No," I said. "I'm just not invisible anymore." And then, I told him everything. Not in anger. Not to turn him against her. Just the truth. What I paid for. What she hid. What she twisted. He was silent for a long time. Then he said, "I think I knew. But I didn't want to admit it." "I know," I replied. "You don't have to choose between us. But you do have to open your eyes." He didn't say much else. But that Sunday, he showed up at the rental. With a bag. And tears in his eyes. And that's when the real storm started. When Ethan stepped into the rental apartment, he looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, he's taller than me now, 17 and already built like a linebacker, but there was something in his posture. Shoulders slumped, eyes darting around the modest space like he wasn't sure if he belonged. Like a kid who suddenly realized his safety net had holes in it. He stood there awkwardly, clutching the straps of his duffel bag, until I gently said, "You hungry?" He nodded. I didn't have much. Just some sandwiches I made earlier and a pot of chili I'd been nursing all week. No lavish meals. No takeout bags scattered on the counter. Just plain food made with quiet hands. He ate 2 bowls without saying a word. I sat across from him, sipping water, letting the silence stretch. Not uncomfortable, just real. And maybe for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Eventually, he looked up and asked, "Are you really not coming back?" I leaned back in my chair, exhaled through my nose. "I'm not sure yet," I said honestly. "But I'm not going back to being treated like I don't matter." He looked down at the table. "She said you emptied her account just to punish her." I shook my head slowly. I didn't touch her account. Only the joint ones. Ones I filled. Ones she drained. That part seemed to hit him. He frowned, then nodded, but didn't say anything else. We watched a movie that night. Some old comedy we used to love when he was 10. It felt strange. Familiar, but distant. Like slipping on an old sweater that doesn't quite fit anymore. But it was ours. And when he laughed at the same lines he used to quote as a kid, I felt something loosen in my chest for the first time in weeks. He stayed the night. Slept on the pull-out sofa. In the morning, I drove him to school. But when I came back, the peace was shattered. On my front door, taped sloppily, was a printed letter. No envelope. Just bold text at the top. "You are hereby notified." Rachel had filed for emergency spousal support, claiming abandonment, economic retaliation, and this one actually made me laugh out loud, intentional emotional distress. She was trying to hit fast, beat me to the punch, play the victim on paper, hoping I'd roll over like I always had. But I was ready. I took the letter inside, scanned it, and sent it to my lawyer with the subject line, "She's making her move." He called within the hour. "She's going scorched earth," he said, trying to frame this like you just disappeared and left her and the kid destitute. I told him Ethan was with me. There was a pause. Then he said, "That changes everything." He helped me file a formal response. We attached the bank statements, the social media posts, even an affidavit from Ethan, if it came to that, though I didn't want to drag him deeper into this unless absolutely necessary. That night, I got a new email. From Rachel. No greeting. No punctuation. Just a wall of frantic, angry, barely coherent text. "You think you can just take my son, my money, my life? You are sick, you need help, you are destroying your own family for what? Because you can't take a joke? You are pathetic, this will not end well for you." I didn't reply, but I saved it, screenshotted it, sent it to my lawyer. 2 days later, Rachel showed up at Ethan's school. I got a call from the office. "She's here, demanding to pull him out," the receptionist said, whispering like she was scared. He's asking to stay with you. He says she's yelling. I dropped everything and drove straight there. When I walked in, Ethan was sitting in the main office, arms crossed, face pale but firm. Rachel was pacing near the door, arguing with the principal, who looked like she regretted every life decision that had led her to that moment. When Rachel saw me, her face twisted. "You," she hissed. "This is your fault." I ignored her. Walked straight to Ethan. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded. "I want to come back with you." The principal looked at me. "He's technically still a minor." "I know," I said, "but I have temporary guardianship paperwork pending. His statement is included." Rachel lunged forward. "He's my son. You don't get to steal him just because you're having a midlife crisis." That word again. Steal. She said it like I was a stranger, like I hadn't raised him, paid for every meal, every lesson, every scraped knee, and late-night drive to a friend's house. Like I hadn't sat through math homework and music recitals while she spent entire weekends resetting at yoga retreats. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. "You didn't lose a son," I said quietly. "You lost your free ride." Her face went crimson. But before she could lash out again, the principal stepped between us. "Mrs. Bennett, I think it's best if you leave." Rachel turned on her heel and stormed out. That night, Ethan and I stayed up late talking. For the first time in years, he opened up. About the way Rachel talked about me when I wasn't around. About how she'd make fun of my job, my habits, how she told him I would have been nothing without her. "She used to say you were lucky to have her," he said softly. "But I think she was the lucky one." I didn't cry. I thought I would. But I just nodded and said, "Thanks, kid." A week passed. Then two. And that's when Rachel made her next move. Not through the court. Through my job. She went for the jugular. It started with a sudden call from HR. The tone in their voice was unfamiliar, not the usual corporate formality, but something colder, more hesitant. "Nathan, can you come in? We need to speak with you. It's about a complaint." My heart dropped. I had never had a single write-up in over 15 years. I'd worked my way up from forklift operator to operations manager. I trained new hires. Stayed late. Took weekend calls. I practically lived for that place. But when I walked into the glass conference room and saw our legal liaison already seated, I knew it wasn't about a workplace issue. They handed me a printed packet. My name was all over it. So was hers. Rachel had filed an anonymous report, but she wasn't exactly subtle. She accused me of using company resources to hide money, manipulating payroll systems, and the most absurd part, emotionally threatening colleagues. It was laughable, provably false. But the problem wasn't the lies, it was that she made enough noise to force them to investigate. I sat through 4 hours of questioning. 4 hours of defending every keystroke, every decision I made over the last 2 years. They combed through my emails, my timesheets, even the company gas card I used for weekend overtime calls. I didn't panic. I had nothing to hide. But I felt dirty. Like I was sitting under a heat lamp with a target on my back for being a decent man who finally stopped letting his family walk all over him. They didn't fire me, but they put me on a 2-week paid administrative leave while they sorted things out. A subtle corporate slap in the face. No guilt, just guilt by proximity. I walked out of that building with the weight of everything she'd destroyed pressing down on my chest. She wasn't just trying to ruin our marriage. She was trying to destroy me. That night, I sat in the rental apartment with Ethan. He saw my face and asked, "What now?" And that's when I knew. It was time to stop defending. It was time to end it. The next morning, I met with my attorney and gave the go-ahead for a full countersuit, divorce filing, custody motion, and a civil suit for defamation and malicious interference with employment. He raised an eyebrow when I added the last part. "You serious?" he asked. I nodded. "She's turned this into a war. I'm just finally showing up to fight." Over the next 6 weeks, everything unraveled, and not for me. When Rachel was served the papers, she went ballistic. She called over 30 times in a day, most of them screaming voicemails alternating between threats and tears. I didn't answer once. Not out of spite, but because anything she had to say could go through my lawyer. She tried to play the loving mother card to the court, saying Ethan had been brainwashed by me, that he was just confused. But the judge wasn't moved, especially when Ethan calmly testified, under oath, about her behavior. The cake. The years of mocking. The way she'd laugh behind my back and call me free labor. The judge's face barely moved, but I saw the shift in his eyes. The quiet disgust. Then came the financial records. Every dime I paid. Every luxury she charged. The endless list of wellness expenses, weekly massages, private Pilates, imported skincare, custom pet clothes for the dog she never walked. Over $80,000 in 4 years. All while I paid the mortgage and groceries and utilities and school tuition. Her lawyer tried to pivot. It was part of maintaining the home, he argued. I remember my lawyer's smirk when he replied, "She hasn't been employed since 2016. There are no documented contributions, financial or otherwise." The final blow came in the form of a deposition. See, what Rachel didn't know was that I'd quietly recorded a conversation the week before she filed the fake workplace complaint. It wasn't to catch her. I was venting to a friend on a call, and she barged in halfway through, ranting about how she'd make me wish I was never born, and that I'd lose everything if I didn't crawl back to her. She said, quote, "I'll take your job, your money, your stupid moral high ground, and leave you with nothing but that sad little apartment." When the court heard it, every arrogant word, in her own voice, the case shifted. The judge ruled in my favor on all counts. The divorce was finalized within the month. I was granted full custody of Ethan, with Rachel getting supervised visitation until she underwent counseling. As for the job, the investigation cleared me entirely. HR even offered a formal apology letter, though they were too spineless to say it to my face. Still, I declined their offer to return. I didn't want to step back into a place that let her poison linger that long unchecked. Instead, I started something new. I took a severance and used the savings I'd quietly built, the separate account, the investments she never knew about, and I bought into a small business I'd dreamed about for years. A local logistics consulting firm that needed a manager with experience and vision. For the first time in decades, I wasn't living paycheck to paycheck, or worse, watching other people live on my paycheck. Ethan finished high school with honors. He got accepted to a solid university, and I helped him move in, smiling the whole time. Rachel, meanwhile, tried to save face on social media, claimed she was finding herself and living her truth. But the truth had already been filed in court documents and heard by 3 judges. The mask was off. Most of our mutual friends quietly unfollowed her. The ones who reached out to me said things like, "I always wondered how you put up with her." And my favorite, "You were never mediocre. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know what great looked like." It's been a year now. My rental apartment? I left it behind. I bought a modest place near the lake. It's quiet, peaceful. There's a hammock in the back that gets just enough sun. Ethan visits often. We grill on weekends. Laugh. Talk about real things. I can feel the weight of those old years melting off my shoulders, day by day. And sometimes, when I look back, I still remember the cake. Not with pain, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Because that awful, frosting-covered insult was the moment I woke up. The moment I realized I had become a background character in my own life. Now I'm the one writing the script. And I make sure every chapter is worth reading.